Well, hello and welcome to episode 67 of the Adoption and Fostering Podcast with me, Scott Casson Rene, and Giggle Pants,
Al Coates.
Jazz Hands.
Jazz Hands. Hey.
As I began my introduction there, he started getting the giggles. So I thought, no, I'm just going to plough on through. I'm much more professional than that. I am going to go with this.
Well, I just find you inherently funny.
Yeah, I know you do. Funny looking, funny everything. Yeah.
Just remember that I'm laughing not with you, I'm laughing at you. Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, it's our 100th episode.
Oh, to the M to the G.
Yeah.
Is it really? Is it really our 100th episode? So even though it's episode 67, this is our 100th podcast.
Our 100th podcast, because we've got all the specials we did, and the Adopt a Voice, and the Adoptee Conversations, and the Fosters, and blah, blah, blah. So this is our 100th. I'm really excited.
Well, days. You take me by surprise there.
I know.
Oh my God, 100. Do you mean I've sat in a room 100 times talking to you?
Yeah, if we add up the hours, that's more than you've actually spent with Triss over the last 3 years, isn't it? That's.
I'm just surprised we're still doing it after 100. No, we love it. We love it.
We live it, yeah. And look how our circumstances have changed. I'm looking at you sat in a bedroom of in your bed sit.
Yes, and my student digs.
Your student digs, eating pot noodles and living out of a suitcase.
To be fair, I am drinking water today because I feel that rehydration is very important this week, as well as it being 38.5 degrees outside
here. This is the second hottest day of the year ever in England. So that's really exciting.
Yeah. And it's our 100th episode. I mean, how fab.
Wow, we're cooking with gas today, literally. That's really exciting. I have so much info banter, but I'm going to hold that back because I'm going to crack on straight, because I know that...
Can we just hashtag that?
Hashtag info banter. Info banter.
That's our new hashtag.
It is. I think it's in the Twitter profile. I put it in.
It is. I love. You know what I love about our Twitter profile?
What?
Sometimes you change them without telling me, and sometimes I change them without you knowing. And then I'll look at it, I'll go, "Oh my days, a cheeky git."
How long has that been there?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, how long have people been clicking on and going, "Really? What sort of shit get up is this?" It is hilarious, absolutely hilarious. I must go in and check. Actually, I haven't checked for a couple of weeks. No doubt you've changed it again.
But I could possibly have done that. Today's interview is with Cat McGill, who is an adoptive parent, a musician, and she has a degree in psychology. So she got in touch with me and you, and she said, I am doing this tour of music, and it's kind of informed music that's kind of really specific for children who've got sort of developmental delay and have experienced kind of trauma and adversity. To be honest with you, Scott, I was a little bit cynical, I'll be honest.
Well, that doesn't surprise me about you, to be fair. Yeah. I'm always the positive optimist with these sorts of things, and you're always the cynic.
I know, and I'm a social worker.
Yeah, but generally you come out going, actually, matron.
I know. I think I just must have missed that lesson at social work class where you kind of have this open mind. I know how to, but I kind of go. Well, I said to Kat, I've got this inner northern man that talks that sits on my shoulder and goes, "Oh, humbug. Oh, that'll never work. Daft.
What's a pile of rubbish?"
Oh, what that kid needs is boundaries.
And a good slap now and again.
You said that, not me. Let's be clear. If the regulator's listening, that was Scott Casson Rennie. Put my social work number out there.
I was talking about the old man that sits on your shoulder, not you and not me. My goodness.
The inner me. So, shall we just crack on straight with the interview, because it is really interesting, and she kind of she unpacks all of that in a really interesting way, and we'll do that. So let's.
Fabulous.
With no more ado, we shall crack on with interview. Here we go, Cat McGill. This afternoon, I'm speaking to Cat McGill. Hello, Cat.
Hello.
Hello. It's one of those odd experiences when you've known someone on Twitter for years, and then all of a sudden you're an actual person with a voice. It's quite scary.
Yeah, it's strange.
It is, and that's one of the things of doing the podcast is I've kind of slowly joined all these links and realised that these people are real people. So hello, real person.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking forward to doing that in the summer when I'm going to go and meet some people I know off Twitter.
Excellent. I see what you did there. Now you.
I wasn't quite deliberate.
That was wonderfully done. Scott should take some lessons from you. That's how you segued there. I guess, do you want to tell us why you got in touch with me and said, hey, I'm doing this thing. Would it be possible I could come on the podcast and talk? And so, go on, shoot.
Yeah,
tell me what you're doing.
I've been working on a project, a music project, for the last sort of 6 or 7 months, and I am taking it on tour this summer. So me and a guitarist are going all over the place. We're starting in Scotland and kind of working our way down, and we're doing 9 dates in August, and we're going to be playing music for adoptive and foster families.
Wow. And
special families, or any families where children have kind of experienced the care system or had sort of issues in that area.
So does that include children who've perhaps had sort of early adversity, children who've had kind of challenging early starts? Or is it linked directly to care?
No, it's not. Only in the sense that that's where I've focused the project. But right. The songs, potentially, I mean, hopefully they're kind of fun and engaging songs for any sort of children. But the focus of the work that I've been doing on the project has been driven kind of by the adoption, because that's where I've come to it from. That's where my background is. But yeah, it should be fun for everybody.
Because you're drawing together, you're not just a musician. It seems like you're drawing together a few different things. Can you tell us a little bit about you, who you are, and why you've kind of found yourself doing this?
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I've always been really fascinated with people ever since I can remember. I can remember being about 9 or 10 and deciding I wanted to go and do psychology at university because I wanted to learn about people and become a counsellor.
Right.
But the music has always been such a big part of my life. I sort of feel like I've never been able to choose between them. So my degree ended up being music and psychology, joint degree. Then I trained as a music teacher. Then I did some work as a research assistant in a psychology department. So I've kind of bounced between the two things, really. And then
is this the first time you've drawn them together in kind of one unified project?
Apart from kind of one module that I had at university on the psychology of music, it's the first time I've been able to really kind of bring my two worlds together quite like this. But my day job that I've been doing for a few years now is special needs music. So I go into special schools and I work with children with developmental difficulties and learning disabilities, and I use music to help communicate with them and to kind of bond with them and to help them to kind of learn how to respond and make choices and start to communicate. And so that's been quite a good sort of base for me, that when I came to adoption and when I started learning about trauma and adoption and that kind of things, I really wanted to sort of look at how I could apply what I knew from my special needs work into kind of my adopted family. And
because you're you're an adoptive parent as well, which if people know you off Twitter, then that's kind of probably your start point of them knowing you. So can you are you comfortable telling us a little bit about your kind of how that sort of aspect of your life?
So I have a birth daughter who is about to turn 12, and we adopted our son came to live with us nearly 4 years ago.
Right.
Now we've legally adopted him for coming up for 2 years now, but and he is going to be 10 this winter. So there's a couple of years between the two children. When they moved in, my son was just about to turn 6 and my daughter had just turned 8. So he was quite old for to be adopted.
I'm kind of laughing because I think that already you're kind of booking the norm, even the fact that you've got a biological child and then you as you say, a 6-year-old, that's actually incredibly unusual for a child that age, a single child that age, to be adopted.
Yeah. Well, it's a strange one because he'd lived with his birth family for quite a long time, and the judge didn't think there was any chance of him getting adopted, so they basically told the social workers, you've got 6 months to find a family for him, otherwise you have to make plans for long-term foster care.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of popped up, and it was during quite a strange time in adoption land. It was during the time where there were hundreds and hundreds of adopters around, and not very many children.
So that was that 2015. That was there was the first time the balance tipped the other way, where there was more adopters than children, wasn't there?
Yeah, that was it. So we were in matching for like a year nearly,
right.
And we'd seen loads of children. We'd had visits from social workers. We got down to like the last 3, the last 2,
mm-hmm.
and just never really got anywhere. And I will never ever forget looking at my son's profile for the first time, because so after a year, after all of these children that we'd looked at, I looked at his picture and I felt my stomach go, and I felt my stomach and my heart go, there's my son. And then my head went, don't be silly, it's far more complicated than that. Don't get yourself worked up.
Be sensible.
Might not be. It's exactly. It's what's best for him. It's not about you. And but yeah, it was an instant reaction I had the minute I saw him. We just kind of fell in love with him. And then obviously he moves in, and you realise that you don't know him at all, and it's not like what you've built up in your head, and it's not like what you've read on paper. It's and for us also, because he'd actually not spent very long in foster care, he was still very much at the start of his understanding of what was going on, and so hadn't really let's say he was still in that sort of quite terrified, don't know what's going on, so I'm just gonna like be quite compliant and quite good, and I sort of know where I am, kind of thing. So yeah, we had a bit of a shock within.
Because that's an interesting age. Because one of my children was 6, a week off 6 when she moved in to us, and I think that it's a very different experience, because that's a child that you can have conversations with, and you can they have a developed understanding of the world they've come from, and the world that they've travelled through, and the world that they're travelling towards. A very different experience to what is the other experience, especially in the UK, particularly. So that from there, I mean, where does your music fit into that that narrative?
Well, so it came right from the start, because when our son first moved in, I now realise, looking back, I didn't entirely realise at the time, but he was terrified pretty much all the time. So although he was nearly 6, he had quite severe global delay, and he had an older sibling who had a learning disability, and so a lot of people had assumed that he had a learning disability as well,
right.
And I think had sort of treated him as if he had. So he was displaying very much like that, and it wasn't really until we sort of got to know him a bit better that we realised that although he is still delayed, a huge amount of it was from trauma, and he's nowhere near as delayed as we were told that he was. So what we were doing, kind of just going back to answer your question, in the very early days when he was very, very scared and not really responding to very much, we used to sing to him. And we used to sing pretty much constantly. So like if we wanted him to get dressed, then we would be going, can you put your socks on, socks on, socks on? And if we wanted him to get in the car, we'd be like, we're going in the car, we're going in the car. And because he just wouldn't do anything.
So was it purposeful? Was it sort of born out of your knowledge and your experience and your interests? Was it purposeful to use singing, or was it just it was
desperate.
Right.
It was absolute desperation, and like, because of my background and because of who I am, like, that's the sort of stuff I tend to do anyway. I will just sing at people or hum a tune, and because of the work that I've done in special schools, I know about using song to support transitions and that kind of thing. So but it was really sort of born out of, I just don't know what else to do.
Yeah, necessity being the mother of invention.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, well, you just get where you're comfortable, don't you? And singing is kind of singing.
It's what you do. Because it's interesting, because when I was thinking about this and talking to you, and I did a little bit of reading, and I was thinking about my own experience, and I have like this inner northern man that I have to suppress, because he kind of thinks everything like that. You know, this voice that goes, "Don't be daft, man." But I've reflected on my own experience with one of my children who was had a very challenging beginning, and we really struggled around soothing. And we tried all kinds of age-appropriate soothing, and then there came this moment out of desperation again, where I just kind of soothed this 3-year-old like I would soothe a 3-month-old, and that was singing. And I don't know much about singing. I've played in bands and things, but that, I'm not a real musician, guitarist.
You're a drummer.
No, now you've opened up a can of worms there. I'm not going to go with the drumming jokes I've told too many in my life. So what I did, and I thought there's a peculiar rhythm to those very early nursery rhymes that's different to, the hush now, baby, don't you like? And I can't remember. The Cradle Will Rock You. It's very, very specific to very young children, and I employed them, and it just worked. It was literally like a switch. Yeah. And it was, wow, did that actually just work? Something clicked in my daughter's head at that moment, and it was only for a limited period, and it got us through what was a very difficult time. So that's why my point is that I reframed that actually there's something quite unique about music and how it works. Well, how does it work?
Well, funnily, it was something that I kind of learned as part of this project, because I've always kind of known that music kind of gets into your brain somehow, because you see these videos of dementia patients who can't talk or recognize anybody, but you stick them in front of a piano and they come out with all sorts of stuff. But when I was researching for this project and to write the book that goes along with it, I was looking at polyvagal theory, which is something that I've been desperate to learn about for quite a long time, and have just found so difficult to get my head around that it's taken me about 3 years of sort of trying to read things and go, sorry, what was that now? Right, let's read that again. But I found these videos, actually, rather than reading a book, I found this video of a talk that I could watch, which made a lot more sense to me. And what they were saying in the talk is that the part of our nervous system that calms us down is linked to muscles in your face and in your ear. So when you're like in your fight or flight kind of state, then some of the muscles in your ear get switched off, and you can't hear certain frequencies, you can't hear certain sounds as well. Yeah. And so if you can if you think about when you speak in a soothing way, as if you were going to soothe a baby, or if you're trying to soothe an animal or something, then you have quite a sing-songy voice, and kind of soft and calm and like sort of mid-range noise. And so that kind of sound is kind of speaking almost directly to our nervous system, activating this calming system, which I found absolutely fascinating. But I sort of learnt about it retrospectively from after having kind of known that it was happening, but not really working, why.
Yeah. So then, so kind of that's not an uncommon kind of scientific approach, is it? Something happens by accident, then you work out why it works, and then go back and then employ it. That's a lot of the science happens like that. So have you then, using that sort of developed understanding, then I'm trying to, because I as I say, I've been in bands and stuff, and that creative process, writing music specifically for something can be quite difficult. So I've written, it's all well and good sitting and strumming a guitar and going, oh, I feel love, so I'll write a love song. Yeah. But so have you targeted the music you've written, and has that been difficult?
Yes, so hard,
Right.
really hard. Like one of the other theories that I've been looking at whilst I was doing it is a theory is called communicative musicality, which is a really posh way of saying that the way that we talk is quite musical, particularly the way that we talk to babies.
Yes.
So going back to that sort of soothing voice, even though you're not singing, your voice is quite melodic. So like if I'm going to put it on now and I was going to say, oh, hello, hi, how are you doing? You can hear straight away that my voice is higher than it is when I'm talking normally. And it's moving, the pitch of it is moving up and down much more. Like, hi, how are you?
Yes.
So psychologists have studied that, have studied the kind of musical properties of baby talk. And they found that essentially, not only is it very similar between different people, so if you were to study the sort of musical patterns in my baby talk and in your baby talk, they would be very similar.
Yeah.
But also, even across different cultures. So in China and Germany and America, the musical patterns in our baby talk are very, very similar.
Oh, that's really interesting,
which is incredible.
isn't it?
Yeah, especially for things like Mandarin. So I learned something I didn't know, which is about tonal language.
Yeah.
So lots of people probably know this already, but I didn't. That the tone or the pitch that you speak a word at changes the meaning of it. You can say the same word, but say it at a different musical pitch, and it means something different. But even in those tonal languages, the musical patterns are still pretty much the same. Yeah.
That is interesting because lots of other cultural stuff around babies, there's lots of cultural differences, and I know that so things like in a Western culture, we expect children to look at us when we're talking to them, and if you go to an African culture, a child looking at you is disrespectful. So there's some of that stuff that's kind of hardwired into culture, but it's interesting that primal developmental stuff is sort of universal.
Well, yeah, exactly. And sort of what it suggests, if it is kind of innate and hardwired into us, then it suggests that it's quite important developmentally, that these musical patterns and this musical speaking is got to be important. So that was my starting point for the song. So what I started to think about was, for my son, for example, he probably hasn't had very much of that kind of input in his early life. So he probably didn't have somebody talking to him in quite that way, or giving him that kind of attention, building up those kind of building blocks of communication, of social interactions and that sort of thing. And I started to think, well, could I give him some of that, but in a different way? Can I use the music to deliver some of that input to him?
Yeah.
Because he's nearly 10, and he loves a nursery rhyme. He loves himself a nursery rhyme, but he's not going to like them forever. And so I wanted to look at kind of ways that I could do it in a bit more of an age appropriate way, and it was just kind of well, can I do it? Kind of, I just wanted to try. Is it
it's
possible?
An experiment.
Yeah, pretty much. So I started looking in more detail at all the research studies and sort of pulling together some of the different features from the different studies. And so that was my starting point for the writing the songs. So for example, let me think, like when a rising contour of pitch, so like going up in pitch, that is used to initiate interaction, or to kind of indicate it's your turn now, or come and join in. So in my songs, I would use that kind of leading into the chorus, let's say, or if there was a bit where I wanted to do a kind of call and response thing where I would sing something and then there was time for the child to sing something, then I would use that melody shape to sort of indicate that.
Elicit a response, and that's kind of stuff that children. Yeah, but so in doing that, you're practically teaching them it's time for you to sing now, but then that is a transferable lesson in that it's time for you to talk now. That's how a conversation works. Yeah,
exactly. So I mean, a lot of it is very similar to what I do in special schools. So we'll do some basic turn taking things. So I will get them to play and I will copy what they play, and then I will stop, and then they play, and then I play, and gradually they learn about this idea of taking turns. And that's really one of your fundamental building blocks for having a conversation, is being able to understand that I speak, then I stop and I wait and I listen to what the other person says, and then they stop and they wait, and then I speak again,
and so on and so forth. Yeah,
exactly. But you can't have a conversation unless you fundamentally understand that. So I've been used to kind of doing that in music already. So what I was then trying to build in was some more of these kind of musical clues, if you like, or these kind of things that I found from the research, that to see if I could tap into that innate hardwired kind of musical part of ourselves.
So I mean, that's really interesting. That's really made me think of it slightly differently, because you sent me a clip and I listened to it and I didn't get that from it, because it was a song. And if possible, could I maybe snip a bit of that and put it into the podcast? I'll snip a little bit out. But what it made me think was, now you're explaining that kind of that. I listened to it and I thought it was a listen about teaching children to do things, but actually you're doing that, but also you're sort of, it's like those 1980s court cases where there was subliminal messages. Was it Judas Priest who got sued by parents of two children who they claimed had told them to kill themselves? Anyway, we're not going there. I kind of opened up that kind of worms. It's none of that. Sorry, no, there's none of that.
Well, that's the thing though. It's got to work on both levels. It has to be a song that you can just listen to and enjoy, because otherwise the kids won't want to listen to it. So that was another really big challenge of it, is how could I kind of do all this but still make it fun? So the one I sent you with the sandwiches song, it's kind of got those levels on it. So on the very basic level, it's a funny song about sandwiches, and then on the next level, it's about learning how to make a choice, and about conversation and turn taking and waiting, and then on another level, if you look at how I've actually built the song up and how I've used it and how I've structured it, then it's kind of something else again. And so that's why I hadn't actually intended to write a book about it, but I've ended up writing a book to go along with the album so that I could go into those bits in more detail for those who want it. Because I mean, you can just listen to it and enjoy it, and that's fine. But if you can use it as a tool, then it suddenly becomes really much more powerful.
And that is there for parents to use it in an informed way. And I think that, I'm kind of on board with that now, because I'm starting to think actually about lots of different times we've had music, how music can be really reassuring and comforting and safe and fun, and it dissipates, on one level it just dissipates tension in an environment, but actually it totally makes sense that actually it can be a tool that can be applied in a really specific way, rather than just a blunt instrument, if you pardon the pun.
Well, like take the sandwiches song again, for example. So if we've got the CD and we listen to it around the house, and it's a silly song, so we enjoy listening to it and it's funny and we laugh at some of the silly things that we put in the sandwich, then if you then take that chorus section out of it, like, would you like ham, would you like cheese, then I can sing that to you in a completely different situation. So I can be in the kitchen making a sandwich and I can go, would you like ham? And not only is that kind of, am I interacting with you in a fun and musical way, but I'm kind of pinging those memories of, we listened to this song, it's fun. So you've got that association with it already. And so for a child who finds choice quite difficult, if you spend some time getting the fun associations with the song, then you should be able to pull that choice-making section out of the song and use that away from the song.
That's really interesting. Yeah, because I think that choices can be a flashpoint for some children, can't they? They can be quite overwhelming. And I think, it's not exclusive to sort of our cohort of children, but I think choices are difficult. But then to make it into this kind of, in doing that, you're taking away that tension. You're like clicking into something that it becomes a fun experience or a very familiar. There's a pattern to it, and we just answer. We say we want this, we want that.
Exactly. So, like the first stage. So, like in my book, for example, I've got a chapter for each song on the album, and in this chapter, I kind of explain how you go through that process. So, the first stage is you listen to the song together, and you laugh and you enjoy it, and you've got my son kind of chatting along in the background on it, and that'll make you laugh, make you giggle, and you just enjoy it. And then as you're listening to it, perhaps you model doing the reaction. So when I sing "Would you like ham?" then there's a little pause, and so you can model to your child going, "Oh yes, I love ham," and then you're building up all of those positive associations. And then the next step is using it away from the CD, but using it in the same situation. So I would be in the kitchen making sandwiches, and I would want to ask my children what they want in their sandwich, and I would say, "Would you like ham?" And then it will ping off those positive associations. It should make it easier for them to answer the question. Then the next stage is using it in a different situation. So I might be like, "Would you like the park?" or "Would you like soft play?" or or whatever. But because you're using the same melody or using the same rhythm, you're still pinging off those associations. It's safe, it's fun, it's okay, and it's easy to answer and to respond. And because you understand the boundaries around it. So in the song there's always two choices and then a silly choice. So that's predictable, it's safe, you kind of know what's coming.
Yeah.
And it's this or this. So then it goes from being a silly song about sandwiches to being a really useful, kind of powerful tool.
The tool is kind of really easily accessible and kind of perhaps for some children, I often see on, probably like you on Twitter, where people have kind of got into fraught situations over what's seeming like innocuous nonsense moments that are about choices. My child freaked out because I asked them to do this. Asked them, "Do you want to do this or this?" And they're unraveling. So that is a really practical tool, but actually on one level you're not just getting over that moment. You're kind of putting in building blocks for future and additional options and learning and stuff. And it sort of links into the I don't know whether you're familiar with that Bruce Perry neurosequential model of therapeutics, which is a hideous name. He should have thought of something better. But the idea that you kind of can map brains and see where the gaps are and see where the developmental areas are. You draw, like, it is a bit like a literal map of the brain, and it kind of there's, I can't remember how many, there's maybe 30 different areas that you can map in a child and see where there's gaps. And obviously potentially you could use a tool like this to say, we need to plug that gap, or we need to strengthen that specific developmental area. That's really interesting. So you're often out and about, and where can people find your website? That's what it's.
So my website is catmcgill.uk. It's CATMCGILL.UK.
And have you had a good take up on the tour? Because the details are all in there, but have you had interest?
Yeah, it's varied a little between the different spots, but one of them, the St Albans, we've had to put 2 performances in on the day because we filled up our first one so quickly. You need
T-shirts with "sold out" stamped on them. I insist that you do that. Well, that's really encouraging, and is the book available with that as well? Are you selling them on the night?
Yes, so I'm going to be taking the book and the CD on tour with me, and then once we come back off tour, then I'll be selling the book and the CD kind of online and other things as well. But for the moment, it's just going to be on tour, and you have to wait until autumn otherwise.
You have to come on the tour, won't you?
You will have to come on the tour.
How that works. Oh, you're a marketing genius.
And I'll also have some copies of my other book with me on tour as well.
Oh, did you write another book? He said.
I did. Yeah, I did. This was the one that I actually meant to write It's called Me, the Boy and the Monster, which I released in February.
And I see that's, I mean, on Amazon it gets 10 stars, but I was going to be really cynical and say we can all rustle up 10 friends, to make it, like if you look on the podcast's ratings on Amazon, it's all just universally good on iTunes, because I make my friends do it, and I have been known on occasion gone into the Apple store and signed all the devices up for it. Anyway, that's enough about me. We're here to talk about you.
Well, Amazon are quite hot on that, actually. So if they think that it's not a real review, they'll take it down. Excellent. If they think it's just someone that you've got to go and put on there. Yeah. And I have asked my friends, loads of my friends have got the book, and I've asked them to put stuff up, and they're just so lazy. They just haven't done it.
Yeah. I've got most of my friends are like that, actually. They just ignore me. I saw that you'd read the book. I'll confess I haven't read it, mainly because I don't read as many books as I should. But I hadn't realised that there are adopter memoirs out there, which I don't particularly read, because I've got my own story. But obviously you bring something quite different to the party, don't you? You having that kind of psychology element to your story. So why did you write a book, and what has been the slant on it that you've taken?
Well, when I first started out on the adoption process, like a lot of people, I wrote a blog, and it was initially very much for catharsis, and it was to keep my friends and family kind of informed about where we were at and what was going on, that sort of thing. And when my husband and I went to adoption prep groups, and we didn't have a great experience at prep group, and that's perhaps another story, but it spurred me on to think, well, I think I could do a better job of that. And it was the attachment stuff particularly. So we'd had a little session on attachment on one of the days, and we were driving home, and I was saying to my husband, that was absolute rubbish, it didn't even make any sense. And he's going, well, yeah, I didn't understand it at all. And I was thinking, I'm sure that I could do a better job of explaining that. And so I thought, right, if I'm going to say that sort of thing, I have to sort of put my money where my mouth is. And so I sat and wrote a blog post about attachment to explain properly, in my opinion, what attachment is, and sort of where it's important and where it's not as important as people think it is. And that got a really good response from the online adoption community. And I got asked to write more and to write about other things. And so gradually that sort of grew into the book. And for a long time I was thinking, oh, well, do I make it a memoir? Do I make it a full-on kind of theory? But neither of them kind of felt right, because I really wanted to include the theory stuff because it's really important to me, and it's really kind of helped in my own learning and in my own parenting and becoming a better parent. But at the same time, I had the really sort of raw stuff that you read it and you kind of go, oh my God, I know, I feel like that. I know how you feel. Was all in the blog and was all the personal stuff. So what I ended up doing was writing a kind of theory book, but in between each chapter is a blog post. So you got this juxtaposition between this is the theory of what's going on, and then this is like a piece of writing that I wrote when I was at rock bottom, and a really kind of hard-hitting, this is what it was like in our family. Yeah, and I think I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but from the books that I've read, it is quite unique, because the theory stuff tends to be written by the clinicians and the psychologists, and then the memoir type stuff is written by the parents. But this is kind of both. It's got the theory stuff in it, but I can tell you how to apply it to your life because I've done it and I've kind of lived it. And I've had a lot of really nice responses from it.
Well, in that case, I'll maybe put it on my list of books to read, because that does sound like something I'd be more interested in. Because I do worry that sometimes I think that sometimes as the adoption community we we're a little bit unique in that we're often very articulate and very able people, and that sometimes that we understand enough to be dangerous, and especially around issues like attachment. And I see some absolute hokey talked about. And to be honest with you, there's even Facebook groups dedicated to attachment disorder, which kind of boils my blood. Even the name gets my blood up. But we'll not go there. So it'd be really interesting to. Well, I've got enough enemies online without kind of going out and seeking some more to start at me. But anyway, I wholeheartedly disagree with the name of the attachment disorder Facebook group. So I left it on principle. But it'd be interesting to read that from someone who actually kind of can back that up with real learning and evidence learning, and kind of say, this is what our Tuesday looked like, and on reflection, this is how this theory is played out in a family life. Because often even the Dan Hughes books and some of that stuff, it's great, but actually what does that mean in the reality of a Tuesday morning?
Yeah, exactly. So like the Dan Hughes stuff is brilliant, I love it, but it's all done in a therapy room, and it's all done for like an hour a week in the therapy room, and it's completely different when you're actually living in it.
We can all be Dan Hughes for an hour a week, can't we?
Oh, absolutely. Exactly. I just wanted to write a book that reflected my reality, like a book that would have helped me, the book that I would have wanted to read going through all of that. So there's a bit in there about disclosures. That was a massive thing for me, and how to handle it, and kind of talking through what happens when a child makes a disclosure, and what happens logistically, what do the social workers do, what do the police do, but also how you feel about it yourself, and how you can handle it, and how you talk to your child about it, and kind of those sort of things. Because I was desperate for that, absolutely desperate for that, and there was just nothing out there. So I made sure that I included things like that.
Well, that's really interesting. I mean, that's a whole story in itself, this idea of children telling you stuff. And so even that, I think that's really interesting, that because I've not read anywhere that what does that look like for a family like yourself, an adoptive parent who gets this information. What the hell do you do?
Because I've done it from a professional point of view, like when I was a teacher. I've had kids disclosed to me as a teacher, and I know what to do as a teacher. As a parent,
there's a clear policy to follow, isn't there? There's a procedure. There's a grown-up to talk to.
Exactly. You just give it to the grown-ups. You escalate it. You pass it on. But as a parent, you're it. You're, you know. And I didn't know what to do.
Well, now I'm going to have to read it now, aren't I? You've told me.
You will.
I think I will have to read it. Well, that's fantastic. So you're starting this tour. What are the dates of the tour? When do you start?
So I start in Glasgow on the 18th of August.
Right, a Sunday.
On a Sunday, I'm going out to visit the in-laws. So we're having a few days. We haven't been up since.
You worked it out with the accountant, so you can get some. I understand how it works. Yeah.
Well, it's something like that.
Awkward conversation.
So we're starting in Glasgow, then we're going to York, then we are going down to Bradford, Leicester. Then I've got a few days off because I'm doing a Makaton Signing Choir at Shrewsbury Folk Festival. Then I'm going to Hereford, Wales, St Albans, Birmingham and Trowbridge.
Right. Well, I'll make sure that all of the details of not only your website but that page of those dates, and a link to your previous book and a link to your upcoming book and CD. And I think that you've given me a lot to think about, and I am starting to really rethink about all kinds of musical interludes we've had as a family.
That's good.
Well, it's just I think that even the familiar music is sort of safe place, isn't it? It's that familiarity and comfort, and even as adults we do that. We go and put when we're feeling miserable, we go and put on our favourite song, and it kind of wraps us in a warm blanket or whatever. So that why would that not be true for children on the most basic level, but even more so what you've said? Yes, fantastic. And the last laughs on Scott because he couldn't make the interview, so he's off doing something. I think he's rearranging his prosecco bottles or something, or he's taking out the empties. I shouldn't cast dispersions on him. Well, thank you very much, Kat. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on, and I look forward to reading your book and listening to your CD.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I know that you would have liked to have been there, but you were called away to some important. There's probably some. Well, to be honest with you, I made a cheeky comment at the end about your prosecco, which I apologise for.
That's just typical.
Yes, it is typical.
It's just typical. And when I saw some of the messages afterwards as well, and Kat said you'd said some stuff as well, so I just said, whatever.
You're just used to that.
I just sit here getting the abuse, and I'm just happy to take it.
You are. It's just what you're there for. I found that really interesting, and it did make me think very differently about some of the stuff I'd done, and it made me, made me really reframe how I'd used music with my children, and how music had become quite important to my children in different ways, how we used it at key moments, even like the music we listened to when I put Peanut to bed. It's that familiarity is safety, and it's like a blanket. It brings routine and stuff. So I know you didn't get a chance to listen to it because I know that you have been incredibly busy.
Plus, you only recorded it yesterday, so there was no chance of me getting.
There was, and I have not. And I think the main reason is that I didn't send it to you to listen to.
No, you didn't.
Which kind of.
Oh, look at that little face up the window.
Yes. Hello, Peanut. You okay?
What is for pudding?
What is for pudding? I will come and I will get you.
Oh, my pudding.
Go and ask Kirsty if you can have a yogurt.
Kirsty's asleep.
Oh, is Rebecca and Rich there?
Ask Kirsty. Ask her.
Okay. Can you wait 20 minutes and I'll come and see you?
Have an advice, Ollie.
I'll come and see you in 20 minutes. Just
Have an advice, Ollie.
go on then.
Yeah.
That child is spoilt rotten.
Yeah, what'd you say? Can you open the bottle of Prosecco?
Oh.
But she is the only one that speaks to you, so, you know.
Well, yeah.
In a nice way, in a nice way.
I just wish you were joking. That was the only issue. I really just wish you were joking.
Anyway, sorry, we've gone off topic here.
No, it's because we're doing this at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, which is really unusual.
I know, this is unusual.
Yes.
Very unusual.
Needs must when the devil drives.
Exactly, yeah. We've got lots to do.
So I can recommend you listen to Cat McGill because I think it's really good, and I think
I think I should.
Yes. And it's
I think what's interesting for me is the fact that all of my children were older, so we've never had that. You know, we've never done the nursery rhyme thing or the. You know, they were just too old for that when they came. They'd grown out of that, and to have introduced it at the age of 8 would have been, you know, I don't know. It wouldn't
have fitted, would it? I guess with who, and that's like everything.
I mean, had they regressed and asked for it, I mean, obviously, you know, we would have done, but that kind of never came up. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. So, what's the? Are we getting free tickets? What's happening? I don't know.
Oh well, yes. Kat really generously said we are getting a copy of the CD and a copy of a book, and the book is what I'm really interested in because my children probably doesn't fit them, but the book about the science behind all of this. Which is really exciting. And also she's going to give us a copy of her other book, the Me the Monster. I can't remember the name of it, but we'll use it. We'll give it away. Yeah. And really interesting because she's got that. She holds those two positions of being an adoptive parent, but also being a psychologist, having like a degree in psychology. It's really interesting. So that was all good.
Yeah.
But anyway, now I am really excited, Scott, because for the first time ever, you and I have got a joint booking on Lisa Cherry's podcast.
Oh, I know. the tables have turned.
I am petrified.
Oh, my days.
I'm absolutely
me too.
bricking it.
Probably worth mentioning how this happened. Obviously, we had Lisa Cherry on the show, on the podcast, a couple of weeks ago now, and then we've kind of kept up a little bit of banter with her, shall we say, on the message that originally we started to get her on. And then all of a sudden she said, I want you two to come on my podcast. And we, of course, we can't say no because she came on ours. Oh. But she wants to interview us.
That is.
And, of course...
Bad idea.
Al never talks about himself. And I completely talk about myself.
I'm brooking it.
So I'm going to have to calm it down, and you're going to have to ramp it up, and we're going to have to meet in the middle. And I just hope she doesn't ask too many difficult questions.
Oh, well, I'll have to.
If she does, you'll be answering that one.
Yeah, I'm going to bring my big book of social work theory with me, and just throw them in there randomly. So that's really interesting.
It is. It will be. I'm quite excited actually, because we don't do. It's like hand and deck. That's kind of how it feels a little bit. The comedy duo from the podcast world are being interviewed by somebody properly,
like a
grown
up.
She's much more professional than that.
Oh, knows her stuff. Proper knows her stuff. That lass.
That's what worries me.
Yeah, but I find it really odd because I do share stuff about myself, but I am. But I don't share half of it, or even it's maybe I give 1% of the 100%. Oh, so it'll be interesting. I don't know when that'll be out. August sometime, or maybe she's gonna. I don't know when she's gonna put that. That'll be fine. But we will be.
Put it in on a slow day. Release on a slow day.
Got a long weekend in February.
But to be fair, just to comment as well, she's put together her top 10 podcast or something like that.
Yes.
Which I thought was really, really interesting because we are in there. And that was just, I'm very grateful for that mention. Thank you, Lisa, if you're listening, which you won't be because, you do your own podcast, so why would you listen to anybody else's? I just thought it was really interesting, some of the ones that she'd mentioned, because it's a wide range, isn't it? Why are you laughing? It's true. It's true. I mean, I listen to some podcasts, but, not loads.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
No, that's good.
Thanks, Matt.
But leads me interestingly on. I don't know whether you look at the stats, but I've noticed that a quarter of our podcast listeners come from the USA.
Born in the USA.
Oh, that was delightful. That was the end of that then, wasn't it? They've all.
Sorry, yeah. No, that's so. How many?
Well, a quarter.
A quarter. That's quite a big.
It is. Go on, guess which state, because I can break it down by state. Which has got the most? Now I'm testing your geography, aren't I?
Do I win a prize?
Yes.
I would probably think that it would be the West Coast, which doesn't narrow down a state. No, the East Coast. Oh, let me think now. What's the East and what's the West? What's the right-hand one?
This is podcast gold, isn't it?
East.
Podcast
gold.
Not
the West Coast. But I don't think it would be in the middle. I think it would be either the West or the East. But I'm more inclined to say the East, and I would probably say it would be the New York State.
Right. Well, you're wrong, and I'd just like to apologise to all of our American listeners that if we've caused any offence.
Left and right or my West and East. I do apologise.
Yeah. The pointy bit in the middle. No. California. Quarter of them come from California, and then Texas. Oh no! Then Washington State, not Washington DC, Washington State, then Texas, and then New York is kind of down the list, but almost all of the states. That's really exciting, and Sweden a lot of lately. That's another country, of course. You do know that, don't you? Sweden's a different country.
Yes, Sweden is not in America. I do know that.
Well done. 7 out of 10.
Well, welcome to our American listeners. Whether you're, well, I don't know what could be so fascinating about us in America.
Well, speak for yourself.
It's your accent.
It is.
It's your accent.
But it also links to my podcast, because on my blog, I'm getting hundreds of views from America, but not that I'm even posting anything. So maybe it's just spam. I don't know.
Maybe they're just bored. Maybe it's a slow news day. Maybe things in America
that's probably
are boring at the minute. So they think, let's listen to this weird Englishman.
That's true. But then flipping the coin altogether, have we got a new children's minister yet, Scott? I've been looking and I've been searching the news.
I've been looking as well, and I don't know. We've certainly got a new prime minister.
Don't even go there.
Yes. There's certainly some interesting appointments, shall we say.
Yes, but the children's minister is really important, and I think that we had that because as much I don't want to get political, but in the sense that sets a tone, and someone like Edward Timpson, who is kind of universally admired and respected, and wanted back. Please come back, all is forgiven.
Yeah.
But then we had Robert Goodwill, who was Robert Goodwill, and then we had Nadeem Zahawi, who was I think a bit better, but obviously it's a contentious issue, and I just think, who's it going to be and what is it going to be? And because they set the tone, and being at the DFE this week, they were kind of like going, we're not sure what's going to happen, and I think
the last appointment was made 8 hours ago, and there's been nothing since, because I think he's been a bit busy today, has Bojo, hasn't he? So
has he?
So he's done his first parliamentary whatever and his first cabinet meeting and stuff. So but anyway, it'll be interesting to see. If I recall, when Goodwill and Zahawi were appointed, it did take a little bit of time for that post to be announced, because it's quite not exactly. Yeah, it's down the chain a little bit, isn't it? So it might be a couple of days, but we shall see. Like you, not going to go political, but I suspect it could still be Mr. Zahawi. Because he is a supporter of Bojo, so who knows? We'll just have to wait and see, won't we?
I think the word on the street was that. Well, I think everyone was saying that he was hoping for a step up in ministerial roles, but
he was a step down from Ed Timpson anyway, wasn't he? Because Ed Timpson was children minister, and Goodwill and Zahawi have been under secretaries rather than ministers.
Oh, it's all got very complicated.
Anyway, that's just politics. We should never talk. In fact, can we just make a pact never to talk about politics on this podcast ever again?
No. The reason I tell you why is because I have a story that I need to tell, which is the last story of the last ever podcast. And you know the story.
Oh, do I?
It involved me going to court.
Oh, seriously, you've lost me now. The last podcast we did.
No, on the last podcast that we ever do, I will tell the story.
Oh, right, okay. Sorry.
The terrible story the day I was in court.
Yes, it was a sign.
Anyway, that's a teaser trailer, so people will have to keep listening to the podcast and hope that we end.
20 years.
Please let this be the last one.
Maybe when we retire from public service, we might mention that one.
Divulge that story. I'm looking through my list. We've got, so it's 100 podcasts. Who said it would get that way? USA, Lisa Cherry, Minister, books. We've got lots of books to work our way through, and hopefully we will be getting Sally Donovan. We just need to book in. To be honest, we've got so many podcasts in the library. It'll be probably September, won't it, by the time she gets back?
Yeah.
And also we wanted to put on Helen Bonnick, which is really interesting about her book, which was fantastic, and also Joanne Alper, who has got a book on birth families,
which managed at long last to get her to come on.
Yeah, now she's got something to sell.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll come on. Yeah.
Oh! Why didn't you ask before? Oh, exactly. It's hard not to be cynical, isn't it?
Yeah, isn't it?
Hard not to be cynical. Yeah.
No, we've got a lot of good stuff coming up, and I'm really you know me in books. We don't go on particularly well.
I don't know.
I've read Sally's. I've read Joanne's, and there's a lot of really good publications coming out at the minute that are kind of fresh and new and have look at different kind of ways of doing things and stuff like that. Joanne's book was a joy to read, and I
really
just loved reading the birth parents side. It was a real eye opener. So I am looking forward to doing that.
That'd be really good, and I am desperate to kind of get some conversations with birth parents. I'm just really conscious of all of the complexities around that, and just really want to do it right and keep people safe, and just not create all of that stuff.
It's delicate.
Yeah, can be really tricky. But the adoptee stories are going really well, and I'm really pleased with them. We've got a couple of them coming up over the summer, some really interesting ones, haven't we? We've got Black Sheep.
Yeah.
And we've got a woman called Dawn, who people might have seen on Twitter. And a few others.
I can't wait to hear that one, actually. I mean, obviously I did Black Sheep, so I know the content of that, but I didn't do Dawn, so I'm quite looking forward to listening to that, because I think that actually she's very open and honest on social media.
Yes.
Yeah. But very
stuff.
balanced about it. Well, she comes across as balanced about it, but it would just be really, really good to hear, rather than it being limited to 280 characters.
Yes. Yeah, all good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's it, because it's a Thursday night. It's 5 o'clock. I've literally got to go and discover whether Peanut has eaten us out of all of our ice creams, and if the good Mrs. C discovers that she's had another ice cream today, I'll be killed. I've got to clean up the evidence.
Yes, you do. Yes, good luck with that one.
Definitely, thank you. And well, you stay well, have fun, and even though you are dressed like a cast extra for a Right Said Fred video, Scott's wearing a vest, a white vest. That's all, isn't it? Well,
yeah, you're lucky it's not a string vest. To be fair,
I consider myself lucky.
Yes, I would.
Thank you. Okay. Well, look after yourself and have a smashing week and enjoy the weather.
Cheerio.
Pip, bye bye for now.
When it's time to go, I'll put on my socks and shoes. My first mom is making sandwiches, and now I have to choose. And she says, would you like ham? Would you like cheese?
I have ham.
Or would you like a unicorn with knobbly knees?
Ready?
What a funny sandwich that would be. I wake up on Tuesday morning, it's football club today. We've got a big game coming up, I hope I get to play. I found my football boots and socks and put them in my bag. But first Dad is making sandwiches and asks me why.